Okay, so have you ever gotten into a huge argument with your partner before you've even left for vacation?
Oh, tell me about it.
I'm talking the kind of disagreement that makes you wonder if maybe a couple's retreat to a couple's therapist was a better idea.
Right. Like maybe we should have just stayed home.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we're diving into this funny guide for couples on holiday today, and it totally gets this whole dynamic.
Oh, it does. It's spot on.
Right from the start, the author talks about how he and his girlfriend, they argued so much about vacation destinations that they actually ended up in couples therapy.
You're kidding. See,
No.
I told you it was relatable.
I know, right? But it makes you wonder, what is it about vacation planning that just seems to bring out these passionate sides of ourselves?
Well, the book digs into this idea of travel personalities, which I think is key here. It's
Hmm.
like we all have these fundamental differences in how we approach travel, what we truly want out of a vacation.
Oh, totally. Like for some people, it's all about adventure, right? Pushing those boundaries, getting off the beaten path.
Exactly. That's our nature lover. The one who'd rather face a swarm of mosquitoes than a weak Wi-Fi signal.
They're basically the Indiana Jones of travel.
100%.
Mm.
And the book even jokes that for them, a vacation without bug bites isn't even a real vacation.
That's hardcore, but I get it. It's about connecting with nature, disconnecting from the everyday grind.
Exactly. But then, on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, you have your luxury traveler.
Oh, yeah. These are the folks who believe that if you have to ask how much it costs, you can't afford it.
Right. Think private villas, upscale glamping,
Yeah.
the whole nine yards. But it's not just about, like, showing off or being flashy. It's about curating a very specific kind of
So
experience.
it's about a feeling, right? Like they want to feel pampered, taken care of.
Exactly. They want every detail to be perfect.
Interesting. Okay, but what about those people who come back from, say, a yoga retreat in Bali with a suitcase full of crystals and a newfound appreciation for silence?
Oh, that's our spiritual wanderer. They're all about seeking enlightenment, a deeper connection with themselves and the world.
So we're talking ancient temples, meditation retreats, those sorts of destinations.
Right on. Places with, good energy, a sense of history.
Okay, so nature lovers, luxury travelers, spiritual wanderers.
Yeah.
Who else is in this travel personality lineup?
Well, we can't forget about the adrenaline junkie.
Oh, right. These are the ones who see vacation as a challenge to be conquered. Probably with a GoPro strapped to their head the whole time.
Bungee jumping, skydiving, swimming with sharks. The more adrenaline pumping, the better.
Definitely not my cup of tea, but hey, to each their own, right? Hmm. Now, I think I might fall into this next category. The culture vulture.
The museum and monument enthusiasts, always planning their itineraries around historical sites and cultural experiences.
Guilty as charged. I love immersing myself in the history and art of a new place.
They're the ones who come home with more books than souvenirs.
That's me. Okay, now what about those people who are just down for anything? The ones who can blend in anywhere and seem to effortlessly navigate any travel hiccup.
Those are our travel chameleons. Their superpower is flexibility. They're spontaneous, adaptable, always up for an adventure.
They're the ones who come back with the best stories because they're not afraid to just go with the flow, right?
100%. And speaking of different approaches to travel, we've got our sports addicts. These are the folks who see vacation as an opportunity to train, to challenge themselves physically.
Right, they're the ones who pack their running shoes before their swim trunks.
Absolutely. Their ideal itinerary probably involves more sweat than a Zumba class.
And last but definitely not least, we have the masters of relaxation, the beach dolce
Ah, yes, the connoisseurs of leisure. They've elevated the art of doing nothing on vacation to a whole new level.
sunbathing, napping, sipping cocktails by the pool. They've got it down to a science.
Exactly. It's all about slowing down, disconnecting, and truly embracing the art of relaxation.
Okay, so we've got this whole spectrum of travel personalities, and I'm already seeing how these differences could lead to some, shall we say, spirited conversations when planning a trip with a partner.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where this book really shines. It's not just about identifying these personality types. It's about what to do with that information to actually have a more harmonious vacation.
It's like they say, happy wife, happy life, but throw in choosing a restaurant in a foreign country with a language barrier and different time zones, and suddenly that happy life is hanging on by a thread.
Oh, tell me about it. Food is like this huge deal on vacation. And it's also one of those things where those travel personalities can really clash.
Totally. Like, remember those travel types we were talking about?
Sure.
Imagine a nature lover and a luxury traveler trying to pick a place to eat.
Oh, it'd be a disaster. One's looking for, like, the most authentic hole in the wall, and the other one's all about Michelin stars and white tablecloths.
Exactly. And the Funny Guide, it actually breaks down these restaurant battles even further. They talk about Team NSA, those folks who approach restaurant research with the intensity of, well, a government agency.
I know the type. They've got, like, spreadsheets, color-coded maps of the best-rated restaurants within a 5-mile radius.
Oh, and don't forget the meticulous cross-referencing of Yelp, TripAdvisor, and Google reviews, just to make sure they're not missing a single glowing recommendation.
They're all about minimizing culinary risk. I kind of admire their dedication, actually.
I do too, but then you've got the other end of the spectrum, the folks who are perfectly content with a simple, it looks nice, and there are tables free.
Oh my gosh, yes. The I'm easy, let's just eat crew.
And you can just feel the tension rising when Team NSA has this carefully planned out dinner itinerary, and then Mr. Irma's it looks nice spots a random pizzeria and is all like, this is the one!
Right. Talk about derailing an operation. It's like
Wow.
watching their whole world crumble. But you know what?
What's that?
Sometimes those spontaneous choices, they turn out to be the most memorable meals of the trip.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to go with your gut. Or your partner's gut in this case.
That's a good point. Okay, so how do we navigate this restaurant minefield without, resorting to eating gas station snacks for every meal? Because the book does mention one couple where the guy ended up having French fries on his pizza because he just couldn't deal with another restaurant debate.
Oh no, that's rough. I mean, I'm all for trying new things, but there are limits.
Right, so what's the secret? How do we find that culinary common ground?
Well, the Funny Guide actually gives some pretty solid advice here. Like, first of all, taking turns choosing. That way everyone feels heard.
I like that. So it's like, okay, tonight's your pick, honey, but tomorrow we are so hitting that tapas place I've been eyeing.
Exactly. And setting a budget beforehand can help too. It's like, okay, we've agreed to spend no more than $50 on dinner, so let's stick to that. That way you avoid those arguments over you spent how much on a plate of pasta.
Oh, that's a good one. Money can be such a touchy subject on vacation. Okay, so we've conquered the restaurant dilemma. What about another classic couples travel challenge? The dreaded road trip.
Oh, buckle up, folks, because this is where things can really get interesting.
Right. There's just something about being trapped in a car together for hours on end that just seems to amplify those little relationship quirks, right?
It's true. Like, suddenly, that slightly annoying habit your partner has of tapping their foot to the music is like nails on a chalkboard.
And the book talks about those classic road trip triggers. Like, you've got your backseat drivers, those relentless critics of every merge and lane change, and then you've got your navigators who insist on taking the scenic route, even if it adds 3 hours to the trip.
Oh, and let's not forget the folks who think that a car ride is the perfect time to rehash every past argument or have those deep, meaningful conversations they've been putting off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so where do you see this relationship going in mile marker 237?
Right. Talk about adding pressure to the trip. But seriously, road trips can be tough on even the strongest of couples. So what's the key to surviving those long drives without wanting to drive each other crazy? It can get kind of awkward too, right? Like you're trying to tell this exciting story about your amazing snorkeling adventure, but your partner's version is more like, yeah, it was okay until I got stung by a jellyfish.
Oh, totally. And suddenly you're like trying to discreetly kick each other under the table while simultaneously trying to salvage this story. It's a delicate dance.
It really is. So how do we handle these post-vacation debriefings without, accidentally starting World War III in our living rooms?
Well, the Funny Guide has some pretty funny, but honestly really practical tips for that. Like, first and foremost, try to agree on a shared narrative with your partner beforehand. It doesn't have to be like perfectly airbrushed or anything.
Right. It's more about finding that common ground, right? Like maybe that quaint little bed and breakfast you stayed at didn't exactly have, indoor plumbing.
Okay, that might be a deal breaker for some.
Right. But you can still find the humor in it and agree on a way to tell the story that doesn't involve, blaming each other for the lack of running water.
Exactly. And then it's also about being mindful of your audience. Like, you don't need to launch into a detailed account of your 5-star dining experiences with your friend who's saving up for their first apartment.
Oh, that's a good point. Read the room.
Exactly. It's about being sensitive to where people are coming from. And honestly, sometimes the best stories are the ones where you can all laugh together at those shared mishaps, those what were we thinking moments.
Totally. It's about embracing the imperfections, right? Because those are often the memories that end up being the most entertaining later on.
100%. It's like those travel disasters, they might not be funny in the moment, but later on, they become the stories you tell over and over again.
It's so true. Okay, so to wrap things up, what's the biggest takeaway you hope listeners get from this funny guide for couples on holiday?
I think it's this. Couples travel, it's not always going to be picture perfect. You're going to hit some bumps in the road. You might even have a few arguments along the way.
That's part of the adventure, right?
Exactly. And if you can learn to laugh about those moments, to embrace the chaos and the unexpected, it can actually bring you closer together as a couple.
I love that. So, for anyone listening who's about to embark on a trip with their significant other, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them based on all this wisdom?
Pack your sense of humor, be prepared to compromise,
Mm.
and remember, the best travel experiences, just like the strongest relationships, are often the ones we least expect.
That is such great advice. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the often hilarious, sometimes messy, but always memorable world of couples travel. This has been the deep dive, and we'll see you on our next adventure.